Wat staat er nog op het programma voor dit seizoen? Wedstrijd met Pepijn Rijmeling. Met Pep vandaag ook een snel begin en dan proberen mee te klippen in eventueel ontsnappen. De toekomst in de oorlog 6 series. Dat is toch al moeilijk namelijk dat maar is dan op die hele les. Met de laatste winnaar is het toch kampionaat Oxford. Die er vandaag heel bij is.
Ça va.
Teams introduced to the fans as well. So by the way, track Lions team there getting warmed up, well, getting on the podium at the start. There's Israel Premier Tech, Giacomo Nizzolo, one of the good names in this one today, two-time green jersey winner at the Giro. But making his Arkea Samsic debut today, Arnaud Demer. And Ian, he is going to want to have his debut go to exactly to plan, isn't he?
He absolutely is a huge signing for them. Obviously, the fallout with Groupama FDJ, the non-selection for the Tour de France. He'll be wanting to try and right things today. His last race day was the Tour de Suisse on the 16th of June. So thrown back in at the deep end today, but I'm sure he'll be raring to get a big result today.
Yeah, quite a lot of controversy around that non-selection, but he's going to have to prove his old team wrong, and this is the perfect place to do it here in Belgium. It's a good field. There's a mixture of real experience in there. We've got the likes of Edvald Bosenhagen for Total Energies in that team, along with Anthony Turgis in that squad. He rode the Tour de France as well. So there's a mixture of riders that have been at the World Championships as well, fresh from Glasgow. A few been in the under-23s. And Ian, it's a real mixture in this race, as we would expect at this level.
It is. It's an opportunity for those riders on some of the smaller teams to get a really big result against the World Tour teams. And obviously here we see last year's winner, Victor Campagnat, fresh off the World Championships, like you say, in Glasgow. He had some trouble early on in that race, but I was there watching and he didn't give up. He was out there clocking up the miles and attacking Montrose Street every single time, even though he was out the back of the race. So look out for him. This is a race that really suits him, and he'll be wanting to try and emulate 12 months ago where he took that win out sprinting Zdenek Štibar.
So certainly one of the names that we are going to keep an eye on in this race. It's been running in some form back about the 1930s. Now part of the Lotto Cycling Cup that tries to bring a bit of focus and help the cycling pyramid, the pathway for the young riders and maybe a few older ones trying to find a bit of form or prove some, make a point to prove. We see the neutral start earlier on today, the crowd having an opportunity to watch the riders, see the riders leave the town of Leuven. Campagnat's at the front of the race, at the head of the peloton in the neutral start, and certainly somebody to keep an eye on, as we were saying. Hopefully we'll be joining live pictures fairly soon from out on the road. After the official start, we had an early breakaway. Not sure if we'll see the breakaway or not, but I'll run through who went into that early breakaway for you. 5 riders in that early breakaway. As we'll come back to it, we'll see the Lotto Cycling Cup graphic. And this, the graphic here of the route, and it's tough, it's testing. 38 small climbs on this one in the 193 kilometers. It's gonna be a real sapper.
it's going to be a real test. They started the day with 2 of the local laps, approximately 31 kilometres around there, so give them a good idea of what's coming up later. And then they headed out for this larger loop that goes down toward Overijse, and anyone that's ridden their bike around there knows how hilly it can be around there. They return and do 4 finishing laps, and it is based on that circuit from the 2021 Worlds. Anyone that watched that, the small punchy climbs just come one after another once they're onto that finishing circuit, and plenty of opportunity for the stronger riders to try and break away over some of those short, steep climbs. And here we go to live images.
Live out on the road with 76.1 kilometres to go in this race. We've got 4 of our 5 original breakaway men left, and just seeing who is missing out from that one. So Pim Ronha, Gage Hecht from Human Powered Health, Abraham Stockman, TDT Unibet, and Pepin Ranjanik from the Sudal Quickstep Devil team. But just 30 seconds in. The gap was out earlier on. It was out over 2 minutes 30 seconds. So with 30 seconds and a very active looking bunch, it may already be time to say it's curtains for that breakaway.
It was such a strong breakaway, and even the rider that's been dropped from that, Jason Tesson, I was noting down the riders in the breakaway, and each one of them had really big results already this year, and very strong breakaways. We see the attacks coming from behind already as they hit the Smeesberg. Only 600 metres in length, but an average of 8.1%, and hitting gradients of 17% in the middle here as the riders go over here. We're in for a really attacking race already with 75 kilometres remaining.
And we've got a rider from Alp Syndicunik going out of the peloton there. Problems there for one of the riders. That's Dries van Gestel from Total Energies, getting a bike change. And he's on that climb as well. So difficult to get going on that climb. You can see just how steep it is there, but they come at you quickly in this race. So getting your tactics right have got to be absolutely key. And you have these long, flat sections, and this group have really got to work well together at the front of the race if they are going to have any chance. I'm sticking my neck on the line already, which I shouldn't do, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to stay ahead, especially with the finishing loop as well, with 4 laps around that circuit in Leuven. It's going to be a very tough one. In looking at the course and the setup, it's certainly primed for somebody, if you can time it right, to get away, and you can really make it count on this type of circuit.
You look how thinned out this peloton is already. Yeah, it's been a full-on race from the beginning. This very strong breakaway broke away on the 2nd lap of those local laps that started this race. So it remained all together for 1 lap, and then, yeah, 5 riders managed to break away on the 2nd local lap. And given kind of how that local lap is, it meant that a really strong breakaway formed, and I think that's probably why they're not being given too much time from this peloton behind, as we see even big names like Victor Campagnarts going on the attack, following moves. And yeah, the peloton behind after that feed zone, all in one long line in the gutter. There isn't too much wind today, but around 10 miles per hour is enough coming from west-south-westerly direction that, yeah, with tired legs, feeling that on the shoulder, in the face, that's going to hurt the legs even more after these climbs over the top, as we see Dries van Gestel being brought back to the back of the peloton by his teammate here. Good work from them, but you see how fast is it all lined out at the back, and he's having to close that final 5 metres by himself.
Well, I'll take this. If we've got 73 kilometres of attack in full-on racing, it's going to be an absolute joy to watch. See the experience, the Total Energies team just bringing the rider back up. Not the ideal time to have that bike change, but good job done. And it's good to see the St. Piran team, based in the UK in Cornwall, in this race as well. And they've had some good success at the World Championships with some of their younger riders as well.
They've brought a really strong team here today. I was looking through the squad, a little bit of a late start list kind of change, so just checking that before we came on air. But every single one of those riders could do a big ride today. We've all got a good chance. Some of those riders have been racing on the continent a fair bit this year, so we'll know this standard of racing and how these races are raced. But yeah, looks like a lot of people on the back foot already. You said 75 kilometres of full-on attacking. It's the new age of cycling, as we saw at the World Championships, attacking from 150 kilometres to go as full-on. So we see a little bit of pitch breakup as we go to our helicopter, and just shows the kind of terrain that we have down towards Overijse. I was saying, if you've ridden around here, you know how short and steep the climbs can be, but very picturesque as well, before we head back northerly towards Leuven again.
So they're the main bunch, and Alpecin de Koenig rider looking for a little bit of help, but some quiet words exchanged there. And it's interesting you say about the sort of new age of cycling. And from a coaching point of view, do you think that is changing how some of these riders are preparing? Whereas in the past, maybe you wouldn't call it relaxing in the peloton, but we wouldn't necessarily be expecting it to be quite so frantic in so many races from so early on. Do you think that's changing, and riders are having to adapt their style and their training to be ready for that?
It certainly is. It means that the kind of the power profile of a rider, there's a huge emphasis on fatigue resistance sort of training, so that you are good for a long period of time under stress. You might have got away with it previous years. We think of very explosive riders over the years being able to sit in the bunch and then attack in the last 20 kilometres maybe with one big attack and hold it to the line in a small group and attack from there as such. But now you have to be able to really ride hard and put in those explosive attacks after a huge amount of energy has already been burnt, and riders are just becoming fitter, faster, stronger, and so the teams want to make the races harder and harder because they believe they've got the fittest, fastest guy after a hard race. So see a lot of this kind of showmanship almost of each team wanting to make the race as hard as possible because they believe that's the way they're going to win this one.
It certainly makes it exciting for us to watch, and really appreciate your company today wherever you're watching from on GCN Plus. That graphic of 30 seconds, that time check, hasn't really moved much since we came on air, so I'm going to take that with a little pinch of salt and try and keep an eye out on the road to see if we can get an update on that, but it hasn't moved much. So see, it looks like we've got a few riders that have come off the front. So yeah, Guillaume van Kiersbloek from the Bingo WB team, one of the Belgian teams there that are almost all Belgian squad for this race. David Persico, the only non-Belgian in that one, back on the front.
Another 4 riders coming across to that breakaway of 4, so making a good working group of 8 now. And just where that breakaway went, it's another really strong 4 riders that have gone across to that one. That wasn't a soft move. That's gone when the race was full on, as we see one of the big favourites for today, Arnaud Delis, at the back, just having a word with the Intermarché Circus Wanty rider as he heads back up towards the front of this one. Whether it was just discussing things, maybe seeing if they had kind of some common ground that they could come together and try and control things. That's Gerben Tyson at the back there, who, very similar to rider to Delis, can win from a small group. As we see one of the riders from St. Piran going on the attack now, taking advantage of a slight lull in the action behind, but looks like the chase is full on, not wanting to let any more riders jump across to that break of 8. The gap was down, like you said, I'm sure it's less than 30 seconds now. It seems to be stuck on 30 seconds since we went live. But this is their opportunity to jump across that small gap and make that group at the front slightly bigger.
Yeah, if we can, we've got 8 riders, we think, in that breakaway now, and another 2 riders will try and identify them for you. We know it's one of the St. Piran riders. I do love the jersey. It is, we can get that check for you now, the black jersey with the Cornish tartan on it. It is Harry Birchall that's made the jump there, along with one of the Lotto Destiny riders, Arjen Lievens. Apologise if I get 1 or 2 pronunciations wrong. I'm going to continue working on that. So it'd be interesting to see if Harry Birchall and Lievens can bridge that gap. It's not the biggest of gaps right now. You can see the main bunch behind. Again, apologies for the picture breakup here. Out on the road, there's lots of trees around, and sometimes that can impact on the signal. It looks like they have have made it in. Yes, they have. But there's not a lot of distance between them. You can forget that 30 seconds now.
Yeah, we've got more and more riders joining those two riders that had nearly made it across to the breakaway. I think that's Rory Townsend's made his way into that small group as well, and just all the strong riders coming to the fore now, and then nearly across to the original breakaway. And I think we're just going to get attack after attack right now. In terms of where we are on the course, we've gone over the Schmeesberg. We've got a slight lull in the action when it comes to climbs, because the next climb that they're going to hit will be 59 kilometres to go. And that's the first climb they'll hit on the finishing lap. So they'll do the St. Antoinesberg, which is only 200 metres in length, 4.7% average gradient, and then they'll cross the finish line with 4 laps to go at 55.8 kilometres to go. So heading back now towards those finishing circuits, and this is a real opportunity for some of the riders to anticipate that winning move coming the final kind of circuits. If they can get ahead and then some of the stronger riders attack on those finishing circuits and come up to them, can really give kind of not the lesser riders, but maybe the less confident riders, if they can anticipate, get ahead, and then kind of be ahead of the race and allow the race come up to them on those finishing circuits, that will put them in a really good place.
Well, it's all coming back together a little bit here, and we saw from the helicopter shot just how strung out the peloton was, giving you that indication of the speed. And the riders know that getting into good position ahead of those 4 finishing laps could be absolutely key in terms of being able to mark some of the big favourites and supporting your teammates as well on this finishing circuit, because there's a few tricky turns in there as well, which we'll come on to as we get a little bit closer. One rider in this race, Edvald Bosenhagen of Total Energies, one of my favourite riders growing up watching this sport, and he's 36 years old and still great. He was at the World Championships it was 10 days or so ago, wasn't it now already? Feels like it was just yesterday. Was at the Tour de France this year and ended up finishing 100th in GC, but he's there with part of a squad that is really a real mixture of within that Total Energy squad, and him and Bodnar as well, providing some real experience with some of the young guns there. And we see that in quite a lot of the squads, some older riders in there and experience, and it's good to have those older riders there that can help with the development of the younger riders.
It certainly is, and they've also got some very strong riders backing up those two riders with Lorenzo Manzin, Jason Tesson and Anthony Turgis, and we've already seen Dries van Gestel, I would have thought, has brilliant legs today, the way he changed bikes on that climb and then came back so quickly to the peloton. He had a little bit of help from Bosenhagen to close that little gap towards the end there, but did the majority of the work on his own and closed down a decent gap. And because the race was so spread at that point, his car was quite a way back and he didn't have the advantage of being in the convoy chasing back. So already shown he's got some good legs today.
Well, good legs are going to be absolutely key for this race. These roads, well known to many of the riders, beautiful part of the world. It's a great day for racing as well. Pleasure to be bringing you the coverage as everything's just kind of settled down a little bit for the time being, and probably as I say that we're going to have another attack off the front, but this is the part of the race where riders may be starting to think about their strategy. You can see a little bit of feeding going on, and it's just, as you were saying, Ian, there's a bit of a gap before the next climb and we hit that finishing circuit for the 4 laps, so it's probably a good time in the race to get a gel or whatever your nutrition strategy. Nearly eventually got that out, whatever your plan is for the day.
Absolutely, and I think there'll be a chance to kind of feed once a lap, every lap, until up to 20 kilometres to go on that finishing circuit. So the riders can use this opportunity to kind of use up what's in their bottles, what's in their pockets at this point. To see Gianni Vermeersch covering that move. He's one of the big names from the Alpecin-Deceuninck team. He's been in the top 10 3 times from just 5 starts at this race. So he's definitely one to watch, and I'm sure he'll be covering moves while Timo Kielik, they're probably their best sprinter. He'll be back in the bunch, trying to save himself for those finishing circuits, because he's shown himself to be a top road rider, coming from more of a cyclocross background and picking up some big wins this year for that team already.
It's one of the really interesting things we're seeing right now in the sport is more the multidiscipline approach. Obviously, in the past, there's been lots of riders come in from cyclocross, but obviously with the likes of Van Aert, Van der Poel, and then Tom Pidcock as well, seeing the riders switching from road to mountain bike, cyclocross, I think it's absolutely fantastic for anyone that loves just anything on a bike. And you're seeing that different skill set as well coming in. We'll not maybe talk too much about the mountain bike world championships and the little bit of controversy around that, but seeing these riders switching disciplines for me is fantastic.
It's great. I mean, coming from where I've come from, the cyclocross career, then I just think it's absolutely brilliant to see the riders. It just shows the class of rider that you need to be at the forefront of the cyclocross races. And I think, like your Van Aert, your Van der Poels, your Pidcocks, they're just showing the standard of cyclocross as they came across to road and more or less immediately dominated and were taking wins, podiums at the biggest races. And it's just the physiological makeup that you need to be a good cyclocross rider or mountain biker. Transfers really well once you have that endurance, that aerobic capacity kind of to back up that kind of functional reserve capacity on top of that, then it's just a winning combination, as we see. And a course like today would absolutely suit that sort of rider. As we saw Zdeněk Štýbar, obviously a cyclocross world champion in the past, second last year in a very close sprint finish with Campagnarts. And so we see time and time again these riders dominating on the road. You'll see Axel Laurens, just huge world championships for him, picking up the men's under-23 world title in Glasgow. Just a storming ride from him on a not too dissimilar course. They obviously had some very wet conditions to deal with in the under-23 men's race, but he was super strong, taking out the win that day, and he'll be carrying his form really nicely into this race today.
Yeah, so those two riders, Laurens and Stockman, trying to make a go for it out the front as we're running back into the city of Leuven, about 25 kilometres, 16 miles east of Brussels. It's Belgium's 8th largest city, over 100,000 inhabitants. Since we're coming in, I'll give you a few facts on Leuven. They are pretty well known for their brewing in this part of the world. I'm sure you can all work out what I'm referring to, one particular brand. It was also voted European City of Sport in 2021 when they had the World Championships in this part of the world. Don't have any facts for you on the IMEC Tower, so we'll leave that one. But we're on that straight road in, and then we'll hit the finishing circuit. And we'll see, once we're back on the road, if Stockman and Laurens are able to make that little attack count. But it's interesting timing heading into that circuit, trying to position themselves, but there'll be a lot of work to do. A few conversations going on at the back of the peloton. Rider 174, Pepin Rajnik from the Soudal Quickstep development team was in one of the breaks earlier on today. We've got the Sempiran rider off the front as well. Again, it's quite hard to pick up exactly which rider it is at the moment, so I do apologise for that, folks. But
Laurens and Stockman making a good go of this. Like I previously said, it's a good time to anticipate that finishing circuit. As we saw in Glasgow, if you can get ahead on such a technical, difficult terrain, up and down all the time. So we see that Seb Kiffin coming across that gap He's going to have some work on his hand. Two very strong riders ahead of him, but if he can get across, as I was saying, if you can get a gap going into such a technical circuit, it can be really hard to kind of chase down any strong breakaway. Saw time and time again, I think every single world title was a solo victor, and we saw Julian Alaphilippe here in 2021 winning solo as well, and then small groups behind. I think the biggest group was around 10-15 riders actually behind, so I'm expecting the same today once they hit these finishing circuits, for just the unrelentingness of the finishing circuit to really break up this, what is a very reduced peloton already, break up even further.
Well, Stockman is... Sorry, Axel Laurence from France on the front there for Alpecin de Koenig is having such a good season. Still just 22 years old, and of course picking that world title up in the under-23s. But rode the Tour of Alsace as well back in July. 6th in the points there, 18th in general classification, and picked up a stage win along the way. He is in great form at the moment, and other riders will be watching that very, very closely. Also rode the Tour in Norway as well. But Zeb Kiffin has made the jump to this group, so we've now got a trio at the front there, and good work there from Zeb Kiffin. It was a big effort. He's 25 years old as we're on this in Antoniusburg. Just a short 200-meter burst, but goes up to 5.2%, and it's over. You can see we've got the cobbles in the middle, but thankfully it's not entirely a cobbled climb.
No, it isn't. It's one of the tamer ones on this finishing circuit, but after 190 kilometres of racing or so that these guys will have in their legs by the end of this one, it just adds up. And we saw at the World Championships, obviously a much longer race, kind of 250, 280 kilometres normally the World Championships. It really wears the riders down, and even a short little kicker like that can be a launch pad for a race-winning move. But as you said, super strong from Kiffin to come across that gap there, and a strong group of 3 riders ahead of this one. Looks like Lotto Destiny are just going to come to the front as we hit this finishing circuit now. Just try and control things a little bit more, try and reduce the gap, or at least stabilise the gap for Delis or Campignards.
Well, according to the check, the gap out to 13 seconds now. It's going to probably hover around that area, but this is a circuit maybe someone like Zeb Kiffin's going to like. He's had success earlier this season. He quite likes these crit style finishes, so maybe we'll be able to go quite well. But there's some heavy hitters still obviously in that peloton, and a long way to go in this one with 58.2. But if they can start to work together, build that gap a little bit, and just make life difficult for those in the peloton, as we can have a look at the circuit that we're on now. Certainly once we're on the final lap, 7 really quite potentially awkward turns within the last 3 kilometers. So positioning is going to be key on the final lap, and the very last turn onto the final straight is a little kink left, then into a 90-degree left-hander. So it's going to be a challenging run-in as well. And the roads do narrow slightly in places. So there's how things stand at the moment. You can see the gap in your eye, about 12 seconds. Then on to another little section of cobbles just to keep everybody honest. Great crowds out for this race, and certainly I'm sure when we're on to the final lap, it's going to be pretty packed as we see the square where the team buses are parked in this lovely, lovely city. When you've got a town square to somewhere to park all the buses. I remember being Tour de France in London, and it was Horse Guards Parade, and that worked out perfectly for all the team buses.
You see how lined out it is just with these series of corners, corner after corner at the moment, and narrowing and widening of the road. You can almost only really go through these corners. As we see, that's the 1 kilometre to go, as the riders will get, kind of 5 times to be able to see this final kilometre. It's predominantly downhill from that final kilometre. As I was saying, it's super lined out with all these corners and narrowing. It's kind of best to go through these corners just in one long line rather than trying to force things up the inside. We see another series of corners, and if you're more than kind of 10, 15 riders back, it can make for a really, really tough day out, because you're constantly trying to close the gap back to those wheels in front. As you see, this is our finishing straight, so the riders do have plenty of time after that series of corners to sort themselves out come that final lap down towards the finish.
A lot of Destiny starting to really control the peloton here, and I think with a group of 3 riders up in front, it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And you can see some of the bigger, more experienced teams as we cross the finish line with 4 laps to go. Get an actual time check. A couple of looks over the shoulder. Yeah, it's still hovering about 12, 13 seconds. So now we're on this lap, these finishing laps with 4 to go. With that little break with the 3 riders up in front, but the teams at the front of the peloton will start to no doubt wind this up and just keep the race under control. Still with 55 kilometers to go though, so lots can happen. There's still plenty of opportunity for those riders to launch an attack, and get some beautiful aerial pictures of the town of Lueven. The Lueven Grand Prix, Jeff Sharon's memorial. He was a 7-time world sprint champion on the track. Won his first in 1932, and then, quite remarkably, 1947 as well in Paris. So, amazing career that the Belgian track champion had. Still, Lawrence, Kiffin and Stockman at the front of the race. There's 1 or 2 little nervous looks across over the shoulders, though.
Yeah, just checking that gap and probably hoping that they'll be out of sight from the peloton behind. And it looks like they might just be getting out of sight. And we say out of sight, out of mind in cycling. It just gives them a little bit of breathing room. They're coming up to the Kaisersberg. 53.9 kilometers remaining, 300 meters in length at 5.6% average gradient, but it does kick things off with 10% gradients at the start of it. And this was actually the climb kind of over the top of the Kaisersberg last year, where Campenaerts went on the attack. A teammate drove it really hard all the way up the climb. Just when everyone lulled at the top of it and had a look round, he went over the top of that one, and that was the end of that. Him and Zdeněk Štýbar went all the way to the line with kind of almost 2 laps remaining of that race. So it is one of those courses where you can maybe go for a bit of a long one. I'd have thought the peloton will be racing quite hard to get into that one first, or in at least a good position. As we see at the back, this is what I was saying earlier. If you're a long way back in this one, you're constantly sprinting back onto the wheel ahead, and yeah, that loss of energy is going to add up over the course of 4 laps around this finishing circuit.
Excuse me. Each circuit 13.9 kilometers. And then after the Kaiserberg, it's Leopold Tuxlan, which is not quite as steep, 3.4%, but 1,100 meters in length. So now we're on the Kaiserberg and going up to 9.9%. It is a short, sharp burst. But it's going to take a lot of effort, of course, from these riders and peloton on that climb. Gap out to 15 seconds now.
Yeah, lots of Destiny just controlling things. I'm sure they won't want to let the gap get too big, because they've still got some really big names from that team in this peloton. And I'm sure Victor Campenaerts will want to replicate 12 months ago where he took that win. Other riders in the peloton towards the front there looking good. Giacomo Nizzolo, he's a top sprinter and had a decent ride here when the World Champions were here. He was 10th at the Poly Normandy just the other day, and of course won Trobro Leon earlier this year with Gianni Vermeersch there with a rear wheel puncher, having to get a rear wheel change. And it's going to be a difficult chase now due to the nature of this circuit. It's going to be a long line, and I'm sure there's going to be groups of riders out the back of this one, so it's going to make it difficult to get back into that peloton for him, but I'm sure he'll do his best to do so.
Yeah, Vermeersch, 30 years old now, and hasn't raced since the end of July, to a to alone. He was 17th in the general classification. In the Österreich Rundfahrt, though, he was going pretty well. That was right at the start of July, a 4th in stage 1, a 2nd in stage 2 from St. Anton to Innsbruck, and get some pretty big climbs in that part of the world as well. Depends which route they took. I should have checked that, but yeah, good experienced rider. But on this circuit, getting back in just means you have to use a little bit more energy than you were planning to at this stage of the race. But certainly looks like Total Energies and Lotto Destiny are going to try and push this one here and not let that gap get too far out. Kampenersen and De Lee for Lotto Destiny, certainly the big favourites in that team. Arno De Lee at 21 years old, certainly a rider that has a massive future ahead of him. Getting some really strong results this season. He's been at the front of most races he's been in. Did race in Milan-San Remo as well. The 5th in stage 1 of the Paris-Nice. So for a young rider, he's certainly trending in the right direction. As we see the 3 riders at the front of the race right now.
Yeah, De Lee started this season absolutely on fire, and I remember he took out 2 wins, I think it was, almost in his first 2 days of racing, and there was already talk of him being kind of a favourite for the World Championships on that Glasgow course. And it's funny how things can work out, and yeah, didn't even get picked for the Belgian team in the end, and just gone off the boil ever so slightly. I think maybe just showed or got everyone's expectations really, really high with the start of the year that he had. And don't get me wrong, he's had a very good year for a 21-year-old Belgian rider, but I think a lot of people thought that he was really going to kick on and perhaps do a little bit more this season. But another opportunity for him today as they hit the Leopold de Coulin. As you said, 1.1 kilometres in length, 3.4% average, but it does go up to 11%. Around about the middle of the climb is the hardest section, so could see that used as a launch pad. But right now, with Lotto Destiny grouped so well at the front, Arkea now and Israel coming to help with the pacemaking, that's going to deter people from wanting to go on the attack. When a good pace is being set like this, then yeah, you're probably going to sit back and wait for the attacks to come as we hit those steeper slopes right now.
Arkea Samsic bringing a strong squad here. They've got Jenfi Biermans in the squad here, bringing the experience. He hasn't raced since the Tour de France, and he did finish. No real major results within the Tour for Biermans, but he put in a good shift, that's for sure, for his team. But this, for Arkea Samsic, with 1 or 2 of the teams, we're looking at it and thinking who's going to be their favourite today. I think for Arkea Samsic, it's all about Arnaud Demer in his debut. If he's positioned well, we know how good he's been in the past. If they're positioned well with such a long straight to the finish after the final turn, could play into his hands, but they're going to have to set him up well, and they're not going to allow too big a gap to form. But Reindering trying to get back again into the front group. He has been super active today and still showing the legs are feeling good, but the gap is coming down here as we'll see the peloton enter the shot fairly soon.
This is a ridiculously strong ride from Reindering. He was in that early breakaway, that group of 4 that we saw when we went live. He was part of that 5 that kicked things off on the 2nd opening lap. And going on the attack further, we saw him a minute ago at the back of the peloton talking with his breakaway companion Pim Ronhaar. But looking at his drop, first in the under-23 national championships and 47th at the under-23 worlds just recently, as we see. There is Vermeersch making his way back to the peloton after that rear wheel puncher. I'm sure he's going to want to add to his top 10s from previous years, or at least do a very good job for his teammate Timo Kielik. As we see, Reindering has made it across that group. That's a super strong ride. He went across on that climb. Just going to catch his breath, take a drink, maybe take on a gel or 2, sit at the back of this one for a moment. as the other three continue to work well together.
Yeah, working well together. Now they've got that extra pair of legs. If they can work well, all four of them, they'll be wanting to try and get this out to maybe 20, 30 seconds. But it's going to be a very, very tough ask with the quality that is on the front of the peloton. And you can see them there. We're onto the Schitterstraat. 9.6% this goes up to. Another short 300-meter climb. Not enough, but certainly could be very, very punishing in a few laps' time. Now the attacks start to come in, and this could be a feature of these closing laps, still with 4 laps to go at the moment. I think we're going to see a lot more of this.
We're onto that Wimpersstraat, only 300 metres like you said, but this was the one from the World Championships that was kind of earmarked as the climb where you can really make the difference. Basically 8% the whole way as the peloton crests that one, and the Soudal Quick-Step development team really going on the attack already. Reinderink up ahead, looked like a teammate trying to go across, and maybe he was going to be used as a satellite rider, as we see. 2 teammates, in fact, coming across, making 3 from the Soudal Quick-Step development team, putting themselves in a really strong position. They've used Lotto Destiny to set that pace and really gone hard now to attack that team, and no one represented from Arkea or Lotto Destiny, so they're going to have to get themselves together really quickly and try and bring this one back, because that's a super strong group of around about 8 or 9 riders now at the front. But we see peloton, one long line, and almost at the back here, we will stand no chance, kicking really hard out of this corner simply to hold the wheel in front.
Anthony Turgid from Total Energies out the back of the peloton there. I actually had him highlighted on my start list as well, but maybe just feeling it a little bit. But now this group is getting, as you say, getting a little bit bigger and potentially stronger as well. But I can see 3-4 Arkea jerseys on the front, and they're not going to let this one get away. They've clearly got their plan for today, and they're now going to control things. And the group leading the race has really got to be smart here at this stage, especially on these big, wide stretches of road that are going to really suit the peloton in driving it forwards.
This is one of the few parts of the circuit, the finishing circuit, which will really suit a larger group being able to work together to chase down a breakaway as they're out on this main road. Super fast though, so it's really hard to take a huge amount of time out of the group that's working so well together up ahead. As we're kind of come down and hit the St. Antoinesburg with 45 kilometers to go. That was the climb that they first hit once joining the circuit, and it won't be long after that they'll cross the finish line once again. But this group, yeah, that Devo rider looking very strong, forcing even a gap away from this group. And see how hard the peloton's having to work to try and maintain this gap. Not even bringing the gap down at this point. You see everyone fighting for that wheel ahead. That's how fast they're going.
7 riders in the group with the little gaps in there starting to form, but they have to get organised, and one rider out of the back already. The peloton still lurking. They're just not quite able to make this one properly stick. Got all 7 riders in that lead group back together again, but I think they really do have to get organised, and looks like there's one or 2 jumpy riders in the break as well from what we've seen on that big straightaway. Do you think, Ian, there'll be a little bit of nervousness with this circuit as well, and with those little climbs? It's not the easiest of finishes, as we know. It's been used in the World Championship, so that tells you everything you need to know about how tough it is. But I think a lot of riders, you see, everyone's looking around already. We've still got 46 kilometers to go. It's not a just run into a town and then it's more of a standard sprint stage. So it seems to be quite a lot of nervousness around, but that could just be me making something up.
Not at all, not at all. All the riders know that the winning breakaway could go almost at any moment. the climbs are so hard that they can be launch pads, but also they put riders into the red, meaning once you crest these climbs, and the in-between sections can be really difficult as well, because if you're feeling good, it's the old cliche, if you're hurting, everyone else is hurting, and that's the time to attack. So, no, you have to be really vigilant at the fore. All these corners, all these narrowing and widenings of the roads makes it really difficult to control things. And so all the riders are nervous at this point. Even the riders in the breakaway are kind of constantly looking around, constantly trying to keep the pace high as we hit this climb once again that we've seen before on our screens. And yeah, a lot of the Soudal Quick-Step team really driving things. They're in the brilliant position of having 3 riders in this group of 7. Total Energy represented as well, but Lotto Destiny and Arcaria missed out here. They're the 2 real big teams to miss out, along with Israel. So they need to get on the front of that peloton and try and maintain this gap and perhaps send riders across. We see Lotto Destiny now on the attack over the top of that climb. This is the point everyone's saying. You see those gaps opening up, riders just pulling out of the line because they simply can't hold the wheel in front, and just gaps opening.
Running through little feed zone here and then into the sharp right-hand turn. And this doesn't look like it's going to come back together, because there's just riders stretched out along the road, but it's going, as you say, going well for the Soudal Quick-Step development team, Devo team here. They've got the riders in, and that could be key moving forward. That little bit of support there within what's kind of left of the breakaway.
I think it's one of those situations where the breakaway isn't necessarily going to be brought back as such by the peloton, but more and more riders will simply go across to the breakaway.
That's a good way to put it. And there you can see just how fast this race is at the moment. There's a real mixture of legs in the peloton as well. And with World Championships being quite a bit earlier, we don't have, maybe at this level of race, we would have real mix in the past of riders building towards World Championships, trying to get selection. But Worlds are gone quite early in the season, it's fair to say. There's maybe 1 or 2 riders looking for selection for the Vuelta, but that is pretty soon, and those teams will be just about set by now. And certainly this level of race, only a few riders may be aiming for a good result to get selection. But it's a very different season in a sense, because the Worlds have been moved that forward, and that's for a whole host of reasons. It's brought all of the Olympic disciplines onto the same cycle. Certainly helped riders like Lotte Kopecky on the track and on the road, as we see the head of the race. And I think those breakaway riders have just about brought everybody else up to them. That's the podium where we'll see the winners after the race. I think it's going to fill up there. They've got a big screen as well to watch all the action. Yeah, they've done a really nice job, as they always do, for races in this part of the world, and making it engaging for the fans. There's been opportunities to ride a lot of the course as well before the race as well. Some of the Special Olympians from Belgium were out on the course as well, which was fantastic. As you come through that left-hand turn under the 1 kilometer to go banner, and then you can start to think about the finish. But there'll still be 3 more laps to go when they cross it on this occasion. Timothy Dupont out the back there for the Cartoletto Isorex squad. 35-year-old rider now, Timothy Dupont, part of the experienced group. He was out in China at the Qinghai Lake, second in the points classification in that race. That was in the middle of July. Great crowds for a Tuesday afternoon. It just shows you how much they love their cycling in this part of the world.
It certainly does. Dupont, the previous winner of this race, actually, on a slightly different circuit, but shows his class, and never count him out from a small bunch sprint or a reduced group sprint. But right now, being last man within that peloton that has now split, just shows the sheer speed that down the finishing straight the gap has just opened up. Someone just hasn't been able to hold the wheel ahead, and yeah, quite a few Intermarché Circus Wanty riders caught out there. I think that might be Einhorn from Israel as well. I had him highlighted down. He's the national champion of Israel. Took 2 one-day wins in Poland recently and the first stage of the Czech Tour, so has showed good form. But it just shows if you're not in the right position and someone lets the wheel go ahead, you need to be on unbelievable form to be able to close the gap ahead of you. And for most of these riders, it's just not possible.
Yeah, and Israel Premier Tech bringing quite a strong team to this race with Einhorn, Nizzolo, Rick Zabel as well. Nice one, but it hasn't worked out for them just yet. And see this split, and it may be 1 or 2 riders thinking, well, it's not my day today, and we might see him just sit up through these final, not sit up, hopefully you know what I mean, these final sort of 40 odd kilometers to go. Well, Lotto Destiny having a look around there, in control here right now. Well, as much as I say that, as much as anyone can be in control of this race, but they've got the 3 riders at the head of the peloton as everything is now back together for the likes of Campanarts, Deli, Max's Passions in there as well. Another rider with a good bit of experience as well. Maybe not quite going to suit him today. We shall see. He'll probably win now. This is generally how my predictions go. But well, with 40.5 kilometers to go, we're all back together again. I wonder, what are we going to see over the next 3 laps? Looking for an Arkea jersey. They seem to a little bit further back, but with it all back together again, it just gives everyone a chance to take a quick breather. And then no doubt we're going to go again once we get round to the Kaiserberg, which is not far away.
Yep, turning right onto the Kaiserberg once again. So 300 meters, 5.5% average when it is 10% to kick things off. And that group behind, they might just be able to come back shortly, but it's one of those situations, if you've been dropped for a reason, and so the guys at the front probably won't mind groups kind of coming back because they're pretty certain they're going to get dropped again as soon as it goes hard. To see Bingo now on the attack over the top of this one, being followed by Soudal, Quick Step Devo team. Intermarché with a rider towards the front, and Alpecin looks like they're going to try and jump across this over the top of this one. This is where it really hurts, over the top of the Kaiserberg. Just drags and drags and drags, and these strong riders, Campignat's 4th wheel just following things, and just the gaps opening up constantly over the top of this one.
Good attack by the Bingo rider. It's injected again just that little bit of life. Not that it needed it, but it's woken everyone up after about 20 seconds or so of respite, and Bingo on the attack over the Kaiserberg. But again, not getting away, and Campanarts is sitting well. He's looking strong. He's coming in as one of the big favourites, of course, winning it last year ahead of Stebar and Alexander Kristoff, 3rd in the race last year as well. So clearly Campanarts, experienced rider.
This is almost a carbon copy of his move last year. He went, once there was a lull in the action, over the top of the Kaiserberg. It'd been hard all the way up. Last year was set by a teammate, and he went over the top of that one. But everyone wise to it this year. I'm sure all the riders were watching last year's race last night before they went to sleep to get an idea of the finishing circuit, to get an idea how the race played out. So they're wise to that one this year. Didn't look like it was quite as hard all the way up the climb that time, and so he wasn't able to make the difference with that sneaky little attack once everyone had sat up and was beginning to look round. But Leeuwen's at the back for Lotto Destiny, so they're kind of bookending this peloton right now. He was one of the riders trying to do some work earlier to contain things. Sorry, that's De Bruyne. Slightly different on my start list, but yeah, he was one of the riders doing the work earlier. He's just run out of gas a little bit. But as you said, they were trying to control things, but it's so difficult. These climbs just coming one after another, corner after corner. There's only so much control you can put on this race.
Yeah, it's not a lot of respite, and being out, this is when the experience certainly is surely going to come to the fore. Looking at those teams like we've already talked about, the likes of Bosenhagen in there that have just been in this situation so many times in their career, can help. And Total Energies just with the 5 riders in the squad, but I'm not seeing them. And we've got one of the Israel Premier Tech riders off the front, and we'll confirm who in a second. But again, another rider deciding to launch off the front. Can they make it stick?
We're on to the Leopold de Coulin right now. This is the longer, more gradual climb, but it does kick up in the middle as Lotto Destiny see the danger, and they're coming across, and just constant attacks and constantly people losing the wheel ahead of them. Just opening up, and every time we look down at the peloton, just reduces in numbers every single time. 2 from Israel now at the front of this one.
And it just goes to show you, you said not even 5 minutes ago, how they kind of missed 1 or 2 opportunities. Now they've got 2 riders at the front, and one of them, Jens Reinders, 25-year-old, having an okay season. A couple of decent results. He's been racing a lot on home soil. Raced too much this month, just 1 race. Mostly sticking it out in Belgium. And here we go again. Under 37 kilometers to go, and it's Lotto pushing forwards. Victor Campenerts at the front of the race, which is exactly where he'll want to be and be most comfortable, because he can mark things from there. You're not worried too much about quite what's happening behind you when you just have that little gap. And it's starting to break again here, Ian. We've got 7 riders in that little group at the front, but they're all looking over the shoulders. See Campenerts looking for a bit of help. We've seen lots of elbow flicks, and then not a lot happen after those elbow flicks. But Campenerts marking Israel Premier Tech again, who are keen to just keep moving this one on as we work our way through this lap. 2 more to go after this one.
We're getting to the point in the race where everyone's hurting, and so everyone's looking to dodge a turn or not close that gap ahead of them and flick their elbows, look round, sit up, take a drink, take a gel, just do anything to get off the front. And so, yeah, we're going to get these huge attacks, but we'll definitely go get these kind of calm periods in between the attacks. And this is a great opportunity that if you can go over the top once it's been hard for a long period of time, like we see now the Bengal rider, this is an excellent time to go, because everyone's hurting behind and no one's going to try and close this gap on this real fast section of the course.
Yeah, Bengal being very active over the last few kilometers, and this one has got away here. This is the biggest gap that we've seen. The Belgian team, Bengal, obviously knowing the circuit, they've done their homework and they're off. And this reduced peloton hasn't quite been as alert to that attack as perhaps they might need to be. Get a look on the road, see how tight right-handed riders cutting across the curb. Now onto the climb here. Wimperstraat goes up to nearly 10%, 300 meters, and on the straight they had that pretty decent gap, but it's come back a little bit. So the main bunch, or what's left of the main bunch, certainly alert enough to it. But Bengal, I don't think this will be the last we see of them in this race. Dead easy to spot in the bright yellow jersey as well.
Israel just trying to control things ever so slightly. That's actually Nizzolo who was on the front. Renders a little bit further back in that group for them as well. So they've got numbers. There's another rider in there from them as well. So probably going to fall onto their shoulders, or Lotto Destiny. They seem to have the numbers in there, but couldn't see many Arkea Samsic jerseys in there. I haven't actually been able to spot Demar yet, if he is in there at all. So interesting, just waiting for the right combination of teams to make it into that front group. I think up till this point there's always been almost too many from one team. So we saw 3 riders from Soudal Quickstep development team earlier, and then there was 2 from Israel in that latest breakaway. But we almost need 1 from all of the top teams to make sure this one stays as always. You see more attacks now. Lotto Destiny covering off that one. Arkea up there as well. Alpecin covering with Soudal Quickstep. So just need the right combination, and I think it will split because, yeah, riders are getting tired now.
Well, we saw a little glimpse of Jens Biermans from Arkea, but again it's Kampenaerts off the front, and every time he goes it's just reducing the energy levels and sapping the power out of everybody else. I think he's looking exceptionally strong. We are going to have to keep our eye out and see if we can see any more Arkea jerseys up there, but we've still got the Bingoal rider up ahead, but Kampenaerts trying to bridge.
I think that might be Stan van Tricht going across with him. A very strong rider from the Soudal Quickstep team. Had some good results this season. Already had a win at kind of national level in Belgium, GP Van Mark. So strong combination there going across to those earlier 2 riders.
Well, we did see a quick shot of Arnaud Demar, but couldn't quite see exactly where he was in relation to that shot. So hopefully for his sake he's still in touch. And Kampenaerts just riding past the Bingoal rider, who is going to try and settle back into this big lead group. Nobody else left up the road, and it's Kampenaerts again, Ian, who's driving things forward.
Needs to be careful here not to do too much work. He's obviously feeling great, obviously showing everyone that he's got good legs, but a little bit of a silly move there, travelling at a very high speed, and just seemed to be driving things even faster on a wide open road with a number of riders within the wheel. I know that he's probably been given a kind of a free card to play up to a certain point within this race, and then their focus will switch to Deli in terms of a sprint. So I'm sure he's just trying to force his hand and force himself away, but sometimes you can almost want it too much, and riders look wise to all of his attacks, and they're not letting him take an inch, let alone a few meters.
Well, I was thinking perhaps it's all part of a ruse, and this is them setting up for Arnaud Deli by using Kampenaerts. But of course Kampenaerts wants to win this race, so he is going to give everything he has to do. Still got a St. Piran rider in near the front of the bunch as well. We can see the Bingoal riders well positioned. They've got 2 or 3 riders there. Lots of Lotto Destiny riders there. 4 in the front. Arnaud Deli right there, number 42. It's well positioned. And Lotto Destiny, certainly the ones that are really now with just under 32 kilometers to go, looking to boss this one as much as they can. Israel Premier Tech well positioned still, but with a lot of riding to go in these little climbs, it's not going to stay like this there. We're still, of course, going to see more riders come off the front, as TDT Unibet have been pretty active in this race as well. Still have a rider at the front. We're going to keep our eyes peeled for the red jerseys of Arkea Samsic. I'm not seeing anyone, the first sort of 20 riders. There may be just one popping up on the 20, 25 riders in. Out of this turn and onto another 200-meter climb, but it's pretty relentless. 4.7 to max at 5.2, and it's just enough to, again, allow for that rider to launch off the front if that was where they wanted to do it. Maybe not on this lap, but as we progress towards the final lap.
Rein de Rink finally at the back of the peloton once again. He was our breakaway man earlier and went across to a later move. Shown some great legs today, but looks like he's finally run out of steam, and at the back of this one is not where you want to be when Lotto Destiny are driving it up the climbs and continuing to drive it over the top through that feed zone. Look how lined out it is.
Yeah, Lotto Destiny have, again, put that little bit of pace in there, and they're setting this up nicely if they can keep this going. Just coming through one of the slightly narrower parts of town here. And lots of turns, and as you said earlier, out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes that can make all the difference and just give you those sort of 2-3 seconds that might be all it takes to launch that attack. But the pace is high. It's been high since we came on air. It's not been a gentle run through the Belgian countryside today. But we weren't expecting it to be with this type of race. A lot of attention in Belgium on this one. And I think the Lotto Cycling Cup has helped do that, combining these 10 one-day races, and one of them, Veenendaal to Veenendaal in the Netherlands as well. 9 of them in Belgium. And again, another gap starting to form here between the two main groups at the front of the race. So with under 30 kilometers to go, still anyone's pick as to how this one is going to play out, but it's been fascinating viewing so far. Lotto Destiny, certainly the team that look like they want to remain in control for the rest of this race, but they are certainly not going to have it all their own way when you can see the 2 or 3 Israel Premier Tech jerseys lurking as well, and pretty well positioned, because Lotto Destiny are doing a lot of work at the moment.
They certainly are. The way they're riding it looks to me like they know they can't control it on this circuit all the way to the line. They can't control another 30 kilometers of this race. So what they're going to do is just make it as hard as possible and burn up those kind of riders. And they know that it's going to split up towards the end for a Deli, for a Campagnat. So they're just trying to make it as hard as possible for as long as possible, because they think they've got the fastest and fittest rider. So you look behind, and every time they look behind, that's going to kind of give them confidence in what they're doing, and knowing that no one's getting a free ride around the final few kilometres of this circuit. We see kind of 10, 15 riders back, riders head down, full-on sprinting in the saddle to hold the wheel ahead of them. So I think what Lotto Destiny are doing right now is just trying to wear riders down and stop those attacks for a little while, and then just allow Deli and Campagnats to go all in over the final couple of laps of this race.
Well, it'll be 2 laps to go in a few moments' time. You see the communication between the Lotto Destiny riders, but the grimace on the face tells you, well, Israel Premier Tech still sitting nicely there. And you can see a couple of Arkea jerseys. Was that Demer? It's quite enough. Well, not quite long enough on him, but if that was Demer, then he's just about, well, he's positioned fine right now with 28 kilometers to go and 2 laps coming up. So I mean, it looks like Arkea have got the riders positioned where they need them to be right now.
Yeah, it does look like Demar at the back of that leading group. And I think to a certain extent, the person that wins this bike race might be someone that we don't mention until that
yes.
final lap. You almost want to save yourself, just sit a little bit kind of well positioned, but not using up too much energy to keep close gaps, or simply hold the wheel in front. Just get a nice slow-mo of the group now going across the line. Nizzolo's definitely in there. Didn't quite catch. I think Demar was a little bit further to the right of the group as we looked at it, so the left-hand side, the riders. Problem there for one of the Black Spoke riders. They had a number of riders up there. I think it was Rory Townsend towards the front of the group, who had a brilliant ride at the World Championships, forcing himself into the early breakaway, but then unfortunately suffering a mechanical on that finishing circuit. So there's a problem for Ryan Christensen, who was also in that breakaway at the World Championships. So they're in great form, and yeah, it's a chance today to really show off that form and get a result for perhaps kind of one of the smaller teams like we've seen. But Rory's a super fast finisher, and he'll be hoping to follow the wheels all the way to the end of this one.
Yeah, they did such a good World Championships, and Ryan Christensen actually finishing the Worlds, finished in 48th in the end, but with so many riders dropping out, it tells you he's got a lot in the legs. The 26-year-old from Hamilton in New Zealand. Beautiful riding in that part of the world. I've not been there. Have you been down there, Ian? I'd love to go.
I have been to New Zealand, Rotorua area for the Mountain Bike World Championships an awfully long time ago now. But yeah, brilliant riding bike out there.
I've got a friend heading down there today actually, but for snowboarding, so slightly different. It's that time of the year in New Zealand. So 26.5 to go. It is anyone's pick here, because I think you're absolutely spot on, Ian. The rider that might take this will probably be Campenaerts of the Lee now, but it's maybe just been letting other people do as much of the work as they can. They're just sitting there, good team around them, and still with 26 to go, there's plenty time to just work your way up, as I think we're going to see a few more riders drop from this main bunch. But it has calmed down just a little bit, and that's telling you how much work Lotto Destiny are doing, because for the last 3-4 kilometers they have been at the front of the peloton. They've got 4 riders there, a 5th a little bit further back as they hit the Kaiserberg again, and see, has anybody going to even attempt anything on the Kaiserberg this time? Doesn't look like it here, but it's short and sharp. These camera angles don't give you just the real gradient to this and how tough it is. I say that every week on GCN with some of the climbs. Certainly the head-on shot looking back can give you a little bit more perspective on how steep some of these climbs are. An average of 5.6. And
Rick Zabel still in there for Israel as well, so he'll be a key lead-out man if he can make it to the end of this one with Nizzolo or Jens Reinders in the group, same group as him. He's an excellent lead-out rider, lead-out man come the final 500 meters, but I'm sure it's going to split up. I'm surprised that no one put in any sort of attack over the Kaisersberg that time, but just shows perhaps the pace that Lotto Destiny are riding at right now, just discouraging those attacks from anyone from behind.
Seeing the slow-mo of that mist bottle there. That was one of the Flanders was team there. Easily done, pace you're going at. I think with the lack of attacks, it's telling you where the energy levels are, perhaps the nervousness as well. And I think quite a few teams are probably quite happy to let Lotto Destiny do this work at the front, because it's maybe making their life just that little bit easier right now. They're not having to control, because they know Lotto Destiny are probably going to mark anything that happens. So the longer this goes on, the more we may be heading to quite a big bunch sprint. But I still feel there could be a few moves left, particularly on the last lap. Maybe the time to do it is coming to the end of this lap, and the Wimperstraat, that 300-meter climb. That would be perhaps the St. Antoniusberg just before we hit the final lap. So we'll see if anyone does go for it. But again, you can see those 4 riders from Lotto Destiny just in as much control as anyone's been of this race since we came on air.
I think it almost discourages anyone attacking when they look up and see 5 jerseys from the same team at the 4 of this race. You kind of look up and you think, well, they've got the numbers, they're going to be able to control things if I do go on the attack. But I'd be surprised if there wasn't a big attack at some point, and I'm sure the riders that have been riding from Lotto Destiny don't have too much more left in the tank. One of the riders just went up to have a word with the rider setting the pace. Maybe just ask them to knock it back ever so slightly, maybe changing the plan. It looked like they were just setting a furious pace earlier in the lap to try and kind of just break it up as much as possible. But now it looks like they might be just slowing down ever so slightly to maybe try and keep these numbers as deep into this race as possible. But you see what happens then. Everyone starts to move up and get a little bit excited as we head towards yet another climb. The middle section of this climb is the hardest section, and I'd be surprised if someone isn't kind of given a little bit of hope as the pace comes out of it ever so slightly at the front of this one now as we head into this climb.
Well, it's been a big effort from Lotto Destiny so far, but now approaching 23 kilometers to go, and it's Unibet on the attack. First attack we've seen in about 6-7 kilometers, and Lotto Destiny seem content to just let this one go. We've got 3 riders, one of the St. Piran riders as well. Looks like they've joined that attack. So 3 riders, another rider off the front as well. And now we see Lotto Destiny try and mark that one. So I think it might be Campernuts that's gone.
It is Campernuts following this one, and this is what I said, if they try and ease back and try and keep the numbers to take this one all the way to the end, it's just going to allow people to go on the attack. I think that's Random Rink again. Unbelievable
we saw him
ride
at
for the
the
Sudal
back,
quick-step rider.
He was right at the back, and now he's clearly had a rest and straight back in. But there's so many riders have gone up that it's almost difficult for them to get away now. And Lotto Destiny marking it. It was Adam Lewis that got in for St. Piran.
And they were riders not that long ago who were on the back. When Lotto Destiny were driving it, they were kind of at the back. DuPont was at the back as well. And all the time it was kept at a really hard pace that discouraged them from even moving up, let alone going on the attack. And as soon as they eased back and tried to ride tempo, just absolute carnage once again, as we see more and more riders going on the attack. And it left a Lotto Destiny on the front of the peloton to bring this one back again.
Well, the looks over the shoulder, 22.4 to go.
It's not long now until they hit the Whimpers again. 21.4 kilometers to go. So once they've crested this, it really isn't far until that really tough climb. Everyone looking round, slight lull once again. Well, not for long. Here goes Bingo once again.
Well, we said it earlier, but they've been so active over these last 10, 15 kilometers. And the Belgian teams, of course, wanting to do that with racing on home soil, with live TV coverage as well, wanting to put on a good show. But here we've got Lotto Destiny going off the front. Or is it Unibet? Again, I can't quite see because there's a tree in the way, but it is Unibet, isn't it?
Certainly is the Tiedemann Unibet from Baz Tiedemann, the infamous YouTuber, has set up that team, and you'd have to say punching above their weight here as we hit the Whimpers strut once again. I'm sure we're going to get attacks from behind to try and join this rider ahead of the race.
Looking over the shoulder, trying to really make this one count, and looking very fresh up the Wimperstraat. Again, it's Lotto Destiny trying to mark it. But he's got away just about and marked very tidily.
This could be a key moment. A Sudal rider, a Lotto Destiny rider, and an Israel rider, and the Alpecin-Koenig rider. If those 4 can get together, that's one from each of the big teams represented. Only really Arkea missing out. If these 4 riders, 5 riders could get together, this could be a really good working group now with only 21 kilometers remaining of this race.
Well, the timing of it seems to have been pretty good, but again, with such a high pace, they really need to be able to make it count, or I've got a feeling this might all just come back together throughout the final lap and a half. It's definitely the biggest gap we've seen, and see the main group struggling to keep pace. I think that's the first Arkea rider we can see there in the group, so not well positioned, but probably coming in with Demer and a new rider, and they've still got to learn about each other and how they're going to work together out on the road. But again, that group has just not quite got away, and the 3 riders are going to be, as you said earlier, it's not so much they get caught, but just enough riders just keep bridging across that it becomes a bigger group, and they let it happen. We see Israel Premier Tech. There's Arno de Lee marking. It is Jens Reinders there. And de Lee Again, pretty good position for him with 20 kilometers to go, but it's work he might not be so keen on doing right this second in the race, as these four all looking over the shoulder, all looking at each other and then looking back and thinking, is this the right time? Is this the one that is going to count?
The Alpecin de Koenig rider not doing any work within that group of four at the head of the race, pulling some faces, trying to dodge some turns. I'm sure Timo Kielik must be in that group if he's that confident about not working with this group and almost wanting it to come back together. But right now this would be a good working group. Can't see any one team from behind who's got the numbers to be able to chase this back, and it looks like Israel just trying to fire one rider across. Lotto Destiny letting that one go, as we see a Bingo rider and another Alpecin rider coming across, some Pirin as well. So as soon as they're slowing down in the front, just riders going over the top of that one and desperately trying to go across that gap to the leading four.
And one of the Arkea riders as well trying to join that group. Yeah, the leading four, no more than 5 seconds on the road. But they really have to work together on this part of the core. This is where the road is wide. It's one of the few parts of the finishing circuit where it is wide, and Israel Premier Tech there with another rider firing off the front.
Israel are desperate to get a rider across to this group because they probably know that if they were across there, this could potentially go all the way to the finish, because Lotto Destiny aren't going to chase it down. Alpecin de Koenig aren't going to chase it down. That rider from Alpecin was actually hurting. He wasn't bluffing. He just needed to catch his breath, having closed that gap. And now he is working with that group. We've got a good working group of four. Perhaps Campagnart's not overly pleased with the makeup of it, because now he's beginning to dodge some turns.
Yeah, just lurking on the back, taking on a gel. At the moment, we've got 18.3 to go. And Israel Premier Tech rider there. That is Reinders just on the front, but he's got Vermeersch behind him. And then see the two of the Lotto Destiny riders. Bibins and Bulins, I believe it is, in there.
Looked like there were only two riders from Arkea, one of them being Demar, so he's only got one teammate left to do any sort of work for him. Whether he wants to try and kind of keep that rider for help within the lead out, but they're going to be leading out for 5th place if this one isn't brought back. A couple of Cofidis riders actually still in there, willing to do some work and try and bring this one back, but right now the big team's fairly happy with the makeup of that group ahead.
Yeah, we've not actually talked about Cofidis since we came on air, and again, could be one of those teams that have just been lurking quite nicely. It's Clement Rousseau for Arkea that De Meer has for company, a 28-year-old strong sprinter, having an okay season himself. Raced a huge amount, but raced the Tour of Poland. That was his last start back in July. So at least for De Meer's sake, he has company. And now Cofidis pushing it on up the St. Antoniusberg.
Literally haven't mentioned them all day.
Sorry, Cofidis.
Finally, when push comes to shove, they've got to close this one down, otherwise it's not coming back together. But right now, with two Lotto Destiny riders within the wheel, this is going to be a tall order, and whether he even wants to go across with two riders, making that 3 from Lotto Destiny at the front, is a whole different question. I think that's De Lee on the back there, so yeah, certainly a rider that you don't really want to take up to the front of this bike race.
Well, I think Lotto Destiny would be quite happy to get a lift from Cofidis up to the front, so it's a sort of strange move unless the Cofidis rider is feeling unbelievably strong. He's making life a lot easier for... It is De Lee at the back of the group there, number 42, and from Cofidis it is Axel Zingel.
Zingel is a strong sprinter, but you wouldn't have put him kind of being able to outsprint De Lee, certainly when Lotto Destiny would have 3 at the front of this one. But they're actually happy to work now because they know that they're going to be in an unbelievably good position. The only problem they're going to have now is having 3 riders from a group of 7 perhaps riders from other teams are just not going to be willing to work with them, especially with Delis and Campagnards within that group.
We'll find out the strength of what they've got in the legs, because they're, as you say, they're not going to get any help. But they've got to work that out pretty quickly themselves if a group of 7 does stay away, and it's starting to look like it might. You never know. Said that already in this race and I've been proven completely wrong. But if they can work it all out, I guess the Lotto Destiny would have to just try and ride the other riders out of the race as well as they can, but it's going to be so difficult. I think I'd still rather have 2 teammates in the break than have nobody. So again, it's playing out quite nicely for Lotto Destiny here. But if anyone else wants to get across or do something, now is a good time to do it. Approaching the end of the penultimate lap. Uh-oh, and we've got a problem there. That's Vermeersch. I think he's gone down there as well. We didn't see it on camera, but it's not the look of a man that's just had a mechanical.
No, it looks like he's gone down on one of the many corners, and it looks like Demar might even be the rider on the front of the peloton trying to bring this one back. Saw he was only down to 1 teammate, and whether that teammate came up alongside him and said, I've got nothing left. But right now it looks like the 2 Lotto Destiny riders just sacrificing themselves for Delis, just trying to drive this one all the way to the finishing line. And they'll be crossing this for the penultimate time, so 1 lap to go. They'll hear the sound of the bell, but it does look like Demar is trying to come across that gap. But these Lotto Destiny riders, 2 of them have got to keep this one away for Delis. They're getting no help from the other riders, and it is Demar on the front behind.
He's that kind of wily competitor in this sort of situation. You know, he can find any wheel he wants, and he's such a good fighter. He just, again, he's looking for a bit of help. He's got his teammate behind, but that's not the face of a man that looks like he is going to make that bridge and across to the lead group. He's not looking amazingly happy there, is he? Looking for his teammate.
Sorry, it was Demar in the group behind, actually. It looked like his teammate had gone to the front to try and drive it, close the gap. But in actual fact, Demar had been distanced. The group had split behind his own teammate. And there's some real issues in that front group of 7 because people aren't happy with the situation. Delis sitting on the back, as we see Intermarché, Total Energy, and then finally the Arkea rider has managed to find Demar's group once again and do that effort all over again. So someone must have let the wheel go behind the Arkea rider, and it just meant that Demar was having to chase down his own teammate in that situation. It looked like from the images that Demar was on the front, but it was actually a small group of 3 or 4 riders were ahead of them with a small gap. So yeah, not the greatest situation for them, and some real issues in this leading group as we see the 2 Lotto Destiny riders on the front trying to keep things going to try and keep it away for Delis, but the riders behind really not happy. The Alpecin de Koenig rider and Zingel not happy in this situation.
And you can understand their frustration, a little flick of the elbow, but the rest of this group, so you want to drag Delis to the finish, well, you're going to have to do it yourself, and they're going to try and stay as fresh as possible. But it's, as we work our way through this final lap, Arnaud Delis very well placed in this group, and they do have that distance now on the bunch, back with 13 kilometers to go, but still with enough climbing still to feature on this final lap. It may not be a done deal. The rider that wins this race comes from this group, but some attacks are going to have to come fairly soon into the lap, otherwise this group, regardless of who's doing the work, is just going to be too strong.
They've still got all 4 of the climbs to come, so they'll be hitting the Kaisersberg. 12.2 kilometers to go, so they'll be approaching that one very soon. A right-hand turn into it, and we've seen on previous laps it's a really tough climb. I'd have thought perhaps someone from that leading group would try to attack just to try and break up the leading group a little bit, try and get rid of maybe one of the Lotto Destiny riders at least, to try and make it a little bit of a fairer game at the front of this one. But the gap only appears to be going out right now. Arkea rider trying to bring this one back, but yeah, not much cohesion or power left in that peloton.
So back onto the Kaiserberg. Jordi Boots, Unibet rider at the back. And still Lotto Destiny driving it on with 12 to go on the Kaiserberg. Excuse me, Arnaud Delis still sitting there, but it's the confidence rider. Keeping an eye on Zingle. Fifth wheel at the moment, and hasn't done a huge amount since over the last kilometre or so. Certainly sitting well in the bunch early. Campanarts, yeah, off the front.
Yeah, Campanarts just keeping the pace far too high on that climb, discouraging any attacks whatsoever, and keeping the pace on over the top as we see two riders behind, one from Israel, one from Lotto Destiny once again. They're just covering every move at this point of the race. And that's Reinders just one desperate final attempt to try and get across that leading group, but they in turn have a large gap on the peloton, or what's left of the peloton behind, and I think this leading group's going to go all the way to the line now.
Certainly looking that way. They've got enough strength in there with 11.3 to go. So Lawrence, Single, Campanarts, Delis, 4 of the 7. This one, Libbins, Stan Van Tricht and Jordi Boots in there as well. It's now the tactics within this group, because they're not going to get much help from Arnaud Delis. He's been at the back, or almost at the back, since this group really made it count. And that is just absolutely going to suit him perfectly.
Yeah, right now he's getting an armchair ride all the way to the finish with this one. He has got to watch out for Zingle, though. Fast finisher. Axel Laurent, the newly crowned under-23 world champion from Glasgow, so we know he's got some excellent form. Stan Van Tricht, just a very, very strong rider in his own right. He was second at Dwars Hageland earlier this year, so another really tough one-day race. So still some interesting characters in there, and with Campanarts burning himself out, he's not going to go all the way to the line with this one.
Well, 10 kilometres to go. The winner surely coming from this group now. Jordi Boots at the back for Unibet. Belgian rider.
He's done a really good job anticipating this super strong breakaway. He was already slightly ahead, and they kind of came up and across to him. Put himself in a brilliant position to take out a top 10 at this race, which would be really huge for that team. But right now they're rapidly approaching the Leopold de Coulin, our longest climb on this finishing circuit, 1.1 kilometres, that 3.5% average. It does kick up to 8%, about halfway up. But right now, Lotto Destiny keeping the pace very high with Livins and Campanarts, discouraging those attacks from anyone behind in that group.
Well, this is the front of the main peloton, being led at the moment by Dries de Potte from Intermarché. Back to the main bunch with 9 kilometres to go. All eyes really on Arnaud Delis, but how much has he got left in the tank? And Axel Laurent, I think they could be the danger man in this one as well, as you were saying, Ian, and fresh from that under-23 Worlds, and buoyed no doubt by the confidence as well of taking that title.
Absolutely. The other thing, Lotto Destiny have got Cedric Boulins on the front of the peloton in second wheel, just covering anything that moves. So I really can't see this one being brought back. Another good rider, Harry Birchall, right at the forefront of that peloton. I know he's missed kind of what we think to be the winning move, but still super strong ride from him to up towards the front, still be gunning for a top 10.
Working our way through the streets of Leuven. Our Lotto Destiny in prime position to take the win in the Tour of Lueven here. Campenaerts won it last year, but it might be his teammate that's in the better position for this one. We shall see. Still more climbing to come on this final lap, and will it be a group of 7 that make it to the final kilometre? Or is somebody going to go for a long one? It's going to be very, very difficult to achieve.
Coming up to the Whimpers, 8.3% average, but basically that the entire way for the 300-metre length. I was checking Strava last night, and no other than Wout van Aert has the KOM with 32 seconds. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone gets close to that, or if anyone wants to attack on this final kind of, or sorry, penultimate climb on this circuit.
That'll be a nice segment to get hold of, but I think if Van Aert loses it, he'd probably come and try and get it back someday. Where would we be without that Strava?
Here we go.
It's happening. This one maybe isn't quite going to run out to the sprint that we thought, but 7.4 to go. This was the ideal place to attack on the Wimperstraat.
Van Tricht on the front, really laying down the power. Campenaerts in second wheel, but Arnaud de Lee coming across that gap, but he's bringing Zingle with him.
Again, Lotto having to mark it very, very closely. Still got all 7 riders back together again at the top of it. But it was certainly worth the effort. You can see the gap back to the peloton. 36 seconds now.
Everyone able to follow that move now. It looked at one point like Van Tricht was getting a small gap on the rest of them, that's only managed to get rid of one of the Lotto Destiny riders. What a ride from Jordi Boots on the back. This would be his best result of the season by a country mile.
Well, there 6 of the riders in this group. We've got Lawrence, Zingle, Campenaerts, de Lee, Van Tricht, Boots. There should be one more on the graphic. We lost.
Yeah, it was Livens from Lotto Destiny, got distanced.
That'll teach me to put my head down.
I think it's Campenaerts putting his head down now, driving this one all the way to our final climb at St. Antoniusberg, which is only 200 metres in length, but does get up to 8% gradient, 5% average. So that's our final launch pad for anyone that's wanting to go on the attack. They're going to start that with 3.4 kilometres to go, so crest it with 3.2k to go.
It's such a short climb. It's going to be very difficult with just that 3.4 to go. If it was maybe a little bit longer, it might have more of a chance, but certainly I was so impressed there on that climb with how de Lee just was able to mark things. And now it's Campenaerts back on the front. 6 kilometres to go in this one. One more climb, but don't forget, tricky turns over the final, inside the final 3 kilometres. 7 turns, as we've seen, that are enough to cause some problems, but this smaller group should have no issues with them. But they're short, sharp, and you just never know. There's such a long drag to the finish line as well after the last turn.
Everyone taking the opportunity to tighten up their shoes coming down here. They know that it's come down to a sprint up that final climb or a sprint within the final kilometre. Just looking at that final kilometre, it will be. There isn't too much wind today, but what wind we do have does make that finishing straight a slight headwind. So that's going to mean trying to leave your sprint a little bit longer, a little bit later than usual. So coming off the wheel with perhaps around about 200, just under 200 metres to go is going to probably be the best bet. And it's going to need a strongman sprint into that slight headwind.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, if Campenaerts is even able to offer that wheel to de Lee, because everyone else is going to be trying to jump on Campenaerts as well. So I think Lotto are going to have to set themselves up quite early for it, because it is an absolute free-for-all. But Lotto, they're of course the only team with 2 riders in this one. It puts a lot of pressure on them, and the likes of Laurence and Zingel will be quite happy, again, to just keep letting Campenerts do the work and then try and launch. So all pressure really on the 2 Lotto riders here, because they put so much effort into this one. 4 kilometers to go. We're approaching the final climb. Comes in about 600 meters. Antoniusberg. And that may be what shakes this one up.
It's always that awkward situation that when you have the winning numbers in that final move, everyone looks to you and almost looks to you that you should win this bike race because you have 2 riders within this break. But what that does mean is all the work falls onto your shoulders. So it basically comes down to Campenerts sacrificing himself to keep this one away for De Lee, who on paper is the fastest finisher, but it's been a very tough race, and you never know after 193 kilometers of racing and all these punchy, short, sharp climbs. Never quite know how that sprint's going to be with fatigue in the legs, as we see Jordy Bouts moving up as we're approaching that final climb now.
Well, trying to get into the position they want to be in. If anyone's going to go for a long one, it's going to be very, very tough, and it is the Cofidis rider Axel Zingel that bursts to the front, trying to get ahead, and he's done it, but he's been marked well by Camp. Well, there is Campenerts at the back. Is that a little sign? Because De Lee was the rider who marked Zingel from Cofidis, and this one has exploded with 3 kilometers to go. Campenerts has lost the wheel of the group, and I'm not surprised after the effort, but he's maybe just going to get back on. And Zingel just sits up, and it's all going to come back together. But Ian, that was the little moment there.
It was, and De Lee did the right thing there. He just kept the pressure on. Once Zingel moved over, just kept the pressure on just enough to deter anybody from attacking over the top of that one. The counter-attack would have been a great time to go just before that corner, but what De Lee did, just pressed on enough to discourage that, and has allowed Campenerts back to the front of this one to try and set the pace once again all the way to the finish. I'm sure I'll be surprised if people are going to be happy going to the line with De Lee. I'm sure someone's going to want to go on the attack, try and break things up ever so slightly, but to be able to get away from a rider like Victor Campenerts on the front, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, 2.5 kilometers to go for the final sprint that's coming up here at the Tour of Lueven. 193 kilometers of some pretty frantic racing at times. 38 little climbs within those 193 kilometers. And you can see what it's done. We've got a group of 6 riders left. 2 Lotto Destiny riders in there, Victor Campenerts and Arnaud De Lee. 1 from Cofidis, the Unibet rider, Boots, Jordy Boots, Stan Van Tricht from the Soudal Quick Step Davo team. Axel Zingel and Axel Laurence in there as well. And it is Jordy Boots pushing things on at the front, the Unibet rider with under 2 kilometers to go. And this one hasn't quite been
marked on the attack.
Absolutely. Now, can the remaining 5 riders catch the Unibet cycling team? Rider Jordy Boots is up the front, but Campenerts seems confident enough that they're going to be able to bring this one back in. It was a good time to attempt the move. He's absolutely burying himself here, but Jordy Boots maybe is not going to be able to get away. He's still giving it everything. It's all going to come down to the final kilometer, 1.3 to go. He's got a gap of about 50 meters. Campenerts still in second place through this left-hand turn. Arnaud De Lee, 4th wheel at the moment. Well, it's all winding up. What a race we have had. Axel Laurence there, number 2, the under-23 world champion, through these 2 tricky turns. Jordy Boots still has a small advantage, and it's winding up now. Boots has put a big effort in over these last 300 metres or so. Kampenaerts grinding the teeth. The Tour of Lueven building to a conclusion. Zingel looking over his shoulder. De Lee still there, everyone in contention, and now it starts to go. Axel Zingel pushes it on. He's got De Lee right on his wheel. And Laurent's working as well, and it could be the under-23 world champion. Pushing towards the line. It's going to be a massive, massive effort here. And he's going to come through and take it. Or is De Lee going to get it on the line? De Lee comes through. Wow. Right down to the line, timed to perfection. And what a sprint.
Van Tricht got the jump on them there. He just went a little bit earlier than perhaps De Lee was expecting. Jumped into that headwind super hard, and it took all of De Lee's power to get onto the wheel and just come round to the Soudal Quick Step Development Team rider. Wow, what a finish.
Fantastic, and right on that final, such a long drag to the sprint. Van Tricht pushed it on, but, well, he's got to thank his teammate Kampenaerts for all of the effort that he put in today. And
that was a huge ride from Kampenaerts to keep everything together for De Lee.
Success for Lotto today here in Belgium. They're celebrating. I mean, every single one of their riders in the team has put in a shift today to help get De Lee to the line by just a matter of centimetres as the main bunch come across over a minute back of what's left of the main bunch. Not the day Arnaud Demare wanted, but it's celebrations for Lotto Destiny. And Arnaud De Lee, after you were saying it's such a strong start to the season, but now in August, fantastic performance and backing up what many have been saying earlier on in the season with a win in a tough field in a very, very tactical battle.
Yeah, Nizzolo and Kielik bringing home what was left of the peloton at the front of that one, but De Lee almost caught out by Van Tricht there. He was so focused on Axel Zingel that, yeah, nearly caught napping with Van Tricht taking a long one.
Well, we thought it might maybe someone like Zingel, Van Tricht, the teams that haven't been as active as others in the race, and we'll get a chance to look at it again. Kampenaerts still up the front. Here is where Zingel goes, sitting on Kampenaerts' wheel, and De Lee goes, and watch Stan Van Tricht. Now he pushes over the left-hand side, and that's the moment that De Lee realizes he has to go. And at this stage, you're thinking, Van Tricht might have it, but that line was just a little too far ahead, and in the end, De Lee does it by a bike length. Well, we thought, Ian, that he would be the rider that was on paper the strongest, but he had to work for that, and maybe if he didn't have the help of his teammate over those last 10 kilometers or so, it could have been a different story. But Lotto Destiny rewarded with the effort that they've put into this race.
Certainly could have been different without Kampenaerts in that group, but as we see, he celebrates as well. But Stan Van Tricht, what a performance from him. He just launched from the back of the group. Zingel perhaps didn't realise it was a headwind or didn't quite have the legs that he thought he might. He launched the sprint from Kampenaerts' wheel, and then once he realised that it was a headwind or perhaps he didn't quite have the legs, he just eased back ever so slightly, and it was perfect timing because De Lee eased with him, and Van Tricht just took the speed from the back of the group way over the top and gained a really good gap, and De Lee just managed to get into that slipstream and rush him all the way to the line, and in the end won quite comfortably, but I'm sure he didn't think it was very comfortable until about 5 metres from the line.
Well, he had time just to celebrate as Ramesses de Bruyne there is in with the team that are looking very, very happy. A great day's work for them out here in Lueven, Belgium. The Tour of Lueven, the Lotto Cycling Cup. They're the final results. Axel Laurence coming through in 3rd place in the end. The under-23 world champion, and Jordy Boots for one of the smaller teams in the race as well, putting on a very, very good show. But Victor Kampenaerts was on the front for so much of the Tour of Lueven. He has absolutely buried himself for his teammate there, as so many of the Lotto riders have. 4 Lotto riders in the top 10. Nizzolo coming through in 10th place. And they'll get ready for the podium ceremony, which will be coming up in a few moments' time, as we'll enjoy the helicopter shots of this part of the world. Very, very enjoyable Tour of Lueven here on GCN+. Lots of races throughout the week that you can keep an eye on. Of course, you can watch them again if you only want to watch one race live. We've got it all for you. And we appreciate your company today. If you've chosen to watch us live, well, thank you for being with us. Well, there's a happy man there. And what a season. A real breakthrough season, really, for De Lee. And he's certainly got the look of a rider that is going to go on and have an absolutely fantastic career ahead of him. So before the prize-giving ceremony, the winners' celebration, hopefully we should maybe get a chance to hear from today's winner. Should happen fairly soon. We'll get a look back at the race as well, and then the podium ceremony. Lovely part of the world, a great day for racing, pretty much ideal conditions for a bike race today. 193 kilometers was the distance. But in the end, it was the big teams. Now, here is the winner.
Arnaud de Lee, proficiat. Je 3e overwinning sinds die val in Duinkerke. Duidelijk goed hersteld en goed op weg?
Ja, zeker. Op de hoge stage in Livigno, ik was al super gevoel. En ik neem veel vertrouwen op de Tour de Wallonie. En nu, ja, het is bijna een droom, omdat terug in Polynormont en hier direct met de overwinning, dat is echt mooi.
De ploeg domineerde de hele koers. Jullie waren supersterk allemaal. Victor Kampenaerts heeft het dan op het einde nog mooi afgemaakt voor jou. Had je het gevoel dat jullie de koers domineerden?
Ja, we kennen supergoed de weg. En elke keer op de Bekerstraat we doen echt zwaar. Omdat in de acteur van de peloton het is altijd super zwaar. We proberen een zware koers. En op de eind we zien het is super zwaar. Ja, en Victor was nog super sterk, maar ik denk heel de ploeg was top. En ook het is een super sfeer. En ja, dat is echt goed.
Axel Zengelen begon die sprint van heel ver en even leek het dat Stan van Tricht ging winnen. Beschrijf die sprint eens. Had je het gevoel, ik raak er niet meer?
Ja, het is altijd moeilijk met een kleine spurt zoals dat. Axel Zengelen begon om meer dan 300. Ik zeg, what the fuck, het is een beetje ver. En dan, ik denk, hij ziet het is super ver, dus hij stopt. En op dit moment Stan komt met superveel snelheid. Ja, en dan ik ga blok tot de aankomst. Maar ik heb direct gezien, de been was nog top. Dus ja, het is nog een overwinning.
Arnaud de Lee, you finished, you won today, the 3rd victory after your crash in the 4 days of Duinkerque. How do you feel? How does this victory feel after Sunday? You also won.
Yeah, I feel very, very good. I have a very good training camp in Livigno. And after that, I go to a Tour of Wallonia. And I take my first win after a main crash. And now, yes, it's just a beautiful dream. Sunday victory in Polynormont and now in Leuven. It's very, very very good feeling, and also with this spirit, yes, we see a great Lotto Destiny today.
Dankjewel, Arnaud. Proficiat nog eens.
Well, Ian, I thought I was going to have to rely on your language skills there, but thankfully we had the interview in English. But they're clearly a rider feeling good. He's been up training in altitude in Livigno, up there in northern Italy, part of the world I know very well. But a man in good form going into the latter part of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a nice little summary in English, but yeah, as you said, the Livigno training camp, he said, went really well. Then he raced in Tour Wallonie and then won just 2 days ago in Poly-Normandie and felt really good. Said he had a really strong team. They lit it up on the Beckerstraat, and it was a really difficult race. It was really difficult if you were behind. So the whole team was super strong today, and it was really cool. He described the sprint. He said Alexel Zingel went with more than 300 metres to go, then kind of stopped, and Van Tricht carried the speed, but he was able to just come around him at the end.
So a chance to have a little look back at some of the highlights of the race. Not an easy one to pick your highlights from, because there was just so much activity, and certainly from the moment, Ian, we came on air, right up until that final group of 7 and then 6 were able to make it stick. It was almost felt like anyone's race.
Exactly that. It's just non-stop, and I think his interview kind of described that. The Beckerstraat was 84.7 kilometres to go, which is when we kind of came live, and that's when it really started kicking off, as we see one of the many attacks from Victor Campagnarts earlier in the race.
And Campagnarts, I think he took so much out of so many other riders and entire teams as well, and he just marked everything, kept Lotto in real control of the race. And we have to remember that De Lee actually did bridge across to that group to make it a group, and with 1 lap to go, it wasn't the biggest of gaps that they had, but they made it count on the final lap.
No, absolutely, and then it was all down to Lotto Destiny to keep it going. Axel Zingel did his best to try and break things up on that very final climb, but everyone was able to follow.
Jordi Boots had a go as well, the Unibet rider. But on that final sprint, Stan Van Tricht powered in front, and De Lee was really watching Zingel, but De Lee with the power, with the timing as well, to get it by a bike length. And immediately the two teammates were congratulating each other, because that was a team win. We'll see the result again. De Lee, Van Tricht, Laurens Zingel finishing in 4th. And in what a good week or so it's been for Axel Laurens as well. 3rd today, not an easy task coming off the back of those World Championships.
Not at all. It normally goes one or two ways after such a big win like that. You either just ride on a high for the next few weeks, or there's a real come down almost after it. But he's obviously still riding that wave from the World Championships, that huge solo effort where we saw him take the under-23 world title.
Stan Van Tricht, jullie staan hier aan de start met een zeer jonge ploeg, maar jullie rijden een uitermate sterke wedstrijd. Wat is jouw gevoel na die mooie tweede plek?
Ja, ik denk dat Max misschien wel hebben uitgehaald. Lotto was helemaal een heel sterke ploeg. En wederom, ja, de jongens van het team hebben het heel goed gedaan. We hebben offensief gereden. Hun zoveel mogelijk toch laten werken in de achtergrond. Maar uiteindelijk hebben ze wel een Campenaerts die in de finale toch er altijd bij zijn.
Zengel ging heel vroeg aan in die sprint en even leek het hier dat jij ging winnen. Had je zelf het gevoel, voelde je dat Arnaud de Lee nog achter jou kwam?
Ik wist dat hij achter mij kwam. Maar ja, natuurlijk, de aankomst bedriegt heel hard. Ik denk dat 250, 300 meter was dat ik aanging. En ik weet ook dat de Lee natuurlijk wel meer power heeft. En dat op het moment dat hij toch in de slipstream zou kunnen komen, dat hij waarschijnlijk ook wel overkwam. En ik viel een beetje stil naar het einde toe.
Was het plan op voorhand om hier te eindigen met een groepje van 7 met jou als man om het af te maken?
Ja, sowieso heb ik hier vorig jaar ook een vrij offensieve wedstrijd gereden. Ik weet dat ik een stap heb gezet. Dus dat ik dit jaar toch de rest nog iets meer zou moeten kunnen doen. En ik had wel gehoopt met een klein groepje in de aankomst te komen. Dat de leader dan bij is natuurlijk spijtig.
Je rijdt een supergoed jaar met een tal van mooie ereplaatsen. Hoe voel je je nu en hoe kijk je nog verder naar het eind van het seizoen?
denk dat ik elke jaar wel mijn stappen zet. En ik weet, in juni zet ik een stap, in augustus zet ik een stap. En dit jaar is dat ook wel gelukt. En ja, ik hoop dat die stappen blijven komen. En dat ik volgend jaar dat dan in welterkoersen als Dwars door Vlaanderen, misschien wel als Ronde van Vlaanderen kan doen.
Stan van Tricht, you finished second today after a very strong Arnaud Delis, but you were also strong. How do you feel after this second place today?
Of course, it feels good to feel that you can hurt the bunch a lot. And for me, yeah, my goal was to get away with the strong guys. And it's a pity that Delis was there because he's mostly faster in the sprint. But I'm happy with second.
Dankjewel en proficiat, Stan van Tricht.
Ian, I think Van Tricht a little disappointed there.
Yeah, I think disappointed in the fact that he executed his race to how he wanted to, and it was just unfortunate that there was the faster guy in Delis there at the finish. But it sounds like Lotto Destiny were the strongest team all day. Soudal Quick Step development team, obviously a very young, kind of almost inexperienced team. He said it was nice for him to be the team leader for once in this race today, and his plan was always to get ahead with a small group and sprint from there. As we're now
on Saturday you became world champion under 23, and today you finished third in this race. How do you feel?
Yeah, I was not expecting so much good legs, but yeah, I think I'm a bit frustrated because I race really bad because my feeling was not so good at the middle of the race. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm not gonna finish the race. So I was doing a lot of efforts for nothing. But yeah, then at the end I was feeling better and better. So yeah, it's a bit frustrated because yeah, the sprint I was empty, but yeah, it's not bad also after Saturday.
You rode a super strong race, you did a lot of attacks, you took control over the race. Was that the plan at the beginning that you were the first to go?
Yeah, the plan was to have a lot of guys of the team going in the attack, be offensive, because yeah, it's race. It's better if you are in the front. But at the moment, I was doing a bit alone the efforts. So I was saying, guys, I need a bit of help. But yeah, the guys was not also feeling so good. So yeah, I was still feeling good at the end. So I followed all the attacks. And then was perfect with the Lotto Soudal guys coming from behind. But yeah, it's just the sprint. I was dead, so I couldn't do nothing more.
You became world champion under 23 and finishes here with the elite. I guess you're happy now and you can take some rest off?
Yeah, I'm a bit tired now, so yeah, I'm gonna have some days off and yeah, prepare the end of the season after that.
Axel Laurence, samedi, vous avez gagné le championnat du monde et aujourd'hui, vous êtes troisième sur le Tour of Leuven. Comment est-ce que vous sentez après ce finish?
Ouais, fatigué maintenant, mais non, c'est vrai que je suis content. Je ne m'attendais pas à être aussi bien après avoir tant donné samedi, mais voilà, quand on a les jambes, bah, ça reste. Et ouais, je suis content de ma course, même si j'ai fait beaucoup d'erreurs parce que je ne m'attendais pas à être aussi bien. Mais voilà, c'est comme ça. Après, je peux pas refaire la course 100 fois, donc je fais 3 et je fais 3, quoi.
Merci, Axel Laurence. Dankjewel.
Well, a pretty solid few days for Axel Laurence and a much-needed break coming up, as you heard him say, but almost riding himself not into form, but into the race here, and just saying he wasn't feeling great at the start, maybe not even considering not even finishing, but it worked out pretty well for him in the end.
Yeah, it's probably one of those situations where he's taken it relatively easy after the World Championships, after winning those in Glasgow, and so probably took him a couple of hours for the legs to come round and get going, almost, as crazy as that might sound, but the sheer amount of training and volume that the top guys and girls do, that at this level, if you have a few days off, you actually feel worse for it. So yeah, actually took him quite a while to get into the race, and he was a bit frustrated because yeah, he kind of wasted some energy in the mid part of the race, and then was still at the end, still there at the end to contest the win, but had obviously wasted that energy earlier in the race and couldn't contest the win. But I think being quite harsh on himself for third place, not a bad result today.
Clearly a man that expects so much from himself, but I think he's going to look back in just a few days after those under-23 Worlds to get on the podium in this race, in such a difficult tactical race as well, is a very, very solid achievement. We're hoping to stick around for the podium ceremony. That should be coming up as soon as the riders are in position. I think they're just about there now. We've had the interviews from the top three, and it looks like a nice place to spend a Tuesday afternoon on a reasonably warm day here in Belgium. Podium ceremony in the town, right in the square of Lueven. Laurence and Delis just having a little chat, and I think the podium ceremony getting underway fairly soon. Stan van Tricht is there as well. So we've got everyone we need. I imagine the dignitaries are nearby as well, and hopefully the riders will be called up in front of a decent-sized crowd here that have stuck around to celebrate with Arnaud Delis. He will get the 16 points in the Lotto Cycling Cup as well. Just looking through the standings on that, he wasn't challenging anywhere near the top. I don't even see him on the top 48, but I may be missing him. So he'll get 16 points in that Lotto Cycling Cup. Stan van Tricht was sitting in 21st coming into this one. Caleb Ewan's actually leading it. Another Lotto rider, but obviously not here. Van Tricht will pick up the 14 points for second. Will move him on to 28 points, so up into the top 6 in the Lotto Cycling Cup with one race to go. That is on the 15th of September. And the riders called up to the podium of the Tour of Lueven Memorial Jeff Sherens. Axel Laurence, the man in third, makes his way onto the podium, and there is the podium, bathed in sunshine. Bit of media around and fans sticking around as well. Well, Axel Laurence did wander off, but he hasn't actually made it onto the podium yet, so there he's gone.
Ziezo, dames en heren, we zijn toe aan de podiumceremonie van deze Tour of Leuven Memorial Jeff Scherens editie 2023 liever. Op de derde plaats is geëindigd. Met uw daverend applaus en verbaasde iedereen al vorige zaterdag als wereldkampioen bij de U23. Uw applaus voor Axel Laurence.
Well, there he is. Axel Laurence already has the flowers. An under-23 win at the weekend as well. And now third place here, and a rider certainly could go a long way in this sport, that's for sure. Stan van Tricht, a Soudal rider in second place, saying happy to be leading the team for once. He's 23 years old. He's actually from Leuven himself, so this will mean a lot to him to be standing on the podium in his hometown.
De winnaar van deze Tour of Leuven Memorial Jeff Scherens, Arnaud Delis.
What a great race from Arnaud Delis. And from the Lotto Destiny team. 2 wins in a row now for Arnaud Delis, and that is not an easy thing to do in this sport, Ian, and to have that consistency. I know it's just 2 races, but with such a strong start to the season, and then the consistency to win 2 races in a row tells you a lot about this young rider.
Yeah, obviously the work done at altitude at Livigno, and then obviously came down, raced Tour de Wallonie, just added in that sharpness of racing, and yeah, the combination of the two has come to fruition this week with 2 wins in literally a couple of days. It'd be interesting to see what he can go on to do now the rest of this season.
So the information that we have, he will do the Egmont cycling race and the Renewey Tour before heading to Quebec in early September. That's what we're expecting to see from De Lee, of course, as we know in this game. Things can change around pretty quickly, so don't take my word for it. There's our 3 riders on the podium after a big, big effort today, bathed in sunshine here in Leuven. A few more photographs to be taken. A little bit of media, of course, key for the teams and the sponsors. And they get a warm reception in Leuven in front of the crowd that have stuck around, and good to see so many numbers by the side of the road on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, Ian, any final thoughts from yourself before we wrap it up for the day?
Just a thoroughly entertaining race, wasn't it? As soon as we went live, the action was on, and yeah, that's my kind of racing, just everyone going on the attack. And Lost of Destiny, the big team within this race, obviously their title sponsor sponsoring this series of races as well, so they needed to perform today, and they certainly did.
Certainly have indeed. You can see the view down to the main square in Leuven with the team buses. A lot of fans packed around in front of the podium as well, as we enjoy the helicopter shots. Really nice place to visit, this part of the world. Lots of cafes and restaurants, and as I said a little bit earlier on, particularly well known for their brewing. This is a student town, of course. Probably goes down quite well. I'm not sure if we've got any more podium work to do before we wrap it up. The riders have done their flash interviews, and we've seen the winner on the podium.